John!
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, and you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Very, very well. You seem so far away. I thought I was far away. You seem so far
Okay, well let's
away.
make it closer. Let's
Yes,
make it
please.
closer. Is that better?
That's good. That's good. Yes, we like that. There seems to be there seems to be the trends going on because you're the second gentleman that I have interviewed. I'm about to interview, and you all seem to have this big chair.
The chair is mandatory.
I see that you're in your study.
Yes, just taking some time to make sure I'm in a place where we can have a conversation that is also got an ambience to fit what we're talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, is there any feedback? Are you getting any feedback?
I am not.
Okay, so thank you for those who have joined us. If you're receiving any feedback, I'm using a microphone today. So if you're getting feedback and it sounds a bit like, oh, too much, then just please drop a comment in the box. But I just want to welcome all of you who have joined Mindset Motivation this Thursday evening with my esteemed guest, John F. Dilworth, who will be introducing himself shortly. My name is Simone of Aspire to Inspire. I'm your parent coach, youth mentor, and motivational speaker. And I decided to create this series of mindset motivation because I thought it was important to bring to, or to rather offer, a platform where there are everyday people who are doing extraordinary things, who are breaking and pushing beyond the limitations of their minds to be a success in their own right. And I thought it was something that we could all learn from, especially off the back of COVID-19, and that we can all move towards an upward trajectory in our life. So success, 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 success. So John, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to do this live with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite. I've seen some of the other things you've done with this series, and I've really been inspired by some of the voices that you've shared with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I thought it was right for me to invite you to the Mindset Motivation. So I would like you to start off by introducing yourself to our guests so they can have a bit more background information as to who you are.
Okay, no problem. Well, my name is John Dilworth, and I am a native of Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I currently reside. And I am kind of a half-breed because I'm an IT guy. I have an IT consulting firm, but my passion and my real pursuit is around motivating people. So I have the loose definition of motivational speaker, but I don't think that really defines exactly, what I am working to accomplish. It's more so about motivating people, and speaking is just one of the mediums, but also writing is something that I'm taking a lot of time to invest in, to share with others. And I've been a poet for a lot of years, and that's also a big part of the motivational efforts. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, but I think through our conversation, people will get to understand who I am and what it is that I'm really all about as we proceed.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So one of the ways in how we met initially is you was introduced to me through a mutual friend about some work that we are due to collaborate on, hopefully sometime this year or next year. And that's with working or sharing our experiences and empowering young people, right? And you shared with me that you wanted to do this and you was going to do this just out of your own passion and what you have identified as your purpose. And that has come about through your poetry, your autobiography of poetry called Motivating the Masses. Okay, and it's very inspiring stuff. I do recommend that you guys do go onto Amazon and purchase it, Motivation for the Masses. So can you talk a little bit more about Motivation for the Masses and what was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so Motivation for the Masses is not only the title of my book, I would also call it the title of my life. Everything that I do is pretty much under that umbrella. That is something that for me goes back to the first poem that I wrote seriously when I was 16 years old. And when I was 16, I kind of drifted and, I was in high school and I was just having a good time, not really serious or focused about many things in life. But after I went through some ups and downs at the age of 21, it was revealed to me through my own poetry that I am supposed to motivate the masses. And the way that came about was all of my old poems were written in like old composition notebooks. And as those notebooks began to get tattered and worn, I decided to go and start typing them up on a computer to preserve them. And as I was typing them, each word and line and, every comma and just really going through and looking at what I had written, I began to get motivated from what I was reading. And I was at a place in my life where I really was not moving towards anything purposeful. And so as I wrote these, rewrote these words, I realized and God showed me that you're supposed to share this to motivate others. And not only was it as straightforward as motivate the masses, but it went even further in detail as to what I was supposed to motivate the masses to do. And there are four things. One is appreciate your blessings. Two is to learn from your mistakes. Three is to think optimistically. And the fourth thing is to use whatever you've been blessed with, to be a blessing and help others. And those four things are just a big part of who I am and what I do.
Okay, so I had written them down actually because you had mentioned it before. And I'm going to remove this microphone because I think it's bothering me. I think that should be a bit better. Yes, it is. You talked about living a life of purpose, and you said that one is to appreciate blessings, learn from mistakes, think positively, and to help others. So would you say that this is all encompassed in your book, Motivation for the Masses?
Absolutely. I would say that, the way the book is written is it basically is a chronological volume of poetry, and every year is a new chapter. And okay. I take the poetry and share it in that format because the book is, even though it's a autobiography, it's a poetic autobiography. And what I mean by that is that the books that I have written are not the story of my life. They are the story of the life of my poetry. And the poetry, I do feel, does express those motivational messages. And as you read through the book, you see the things that I've gone through, some of the ups and downs I've gone through, and you hear my testimony. But more importantly, you see the development of poetry that I've shared over time.
Absolutely. So you do see that. So for the benefit of the audience, it's a chronological poetry of your poetry, but it's about you. And it started at 16 and has spanned up until when?
Oh, well, it's ongoing. I'm actually working on volume 3 now. So I started with volume 1, which covered the first few years of my poetic life. And then I've also completed volume 2. And now I'm working on volume 3. So this is something I plan on doing until I die. And ultimately, when I'm dead and gone, nobody's really going to have to write about my poetry because the life of the poetry will speak for itself.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for that. So one of the things I had an opportunity to do was to watch your interview with Liger Partners. Okay, and in the very first, I would say 10 minutes of it, you talked about its connection with the gentleman Hamilton, and how obviously two separate groups, but there was a resonance, a connection that happened, and you know, it turned out to be a very emotional yet empowering experience. You also talked, and you didn't really go into too much more, but around some of the trials and tribulations, so how you even became an IT consultant, how you even started your IT consultancy firm. So would you say that you had a bit of a troubled childhood?
I would say that my childhood was very much blessed and peaceful and stable within my home. I was fortunate, unlike a lot of my other friends growing up, to have a two-parent household that was full of love. But despite the warm and peaceful and kind home environment, I still found myself, drifting out into the streets. And so during the times that I have kind of basically lived a very blessed life in my home, as a child, I also was, going outside my home and being influenced by and sharing my influences with the people around me. And there were many times where I landed myself in trouble. There were many times where I found myself in situations where it was God, in retrospect, that allowed me to get out of them. But not only to get out of them then, but to have a testimony to share and relate to others so that I can show and live as an example of what happens when you have a purpose and you are serving God and you're working towards something greater than yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. So you said having a purpose, and the topic today is living a life of purpose. Okay. How did you know what your purpose was?
Yes, that's a very good question. One of the things that I found myself asking people a lot as I began to kind of tap into my own purpose, I began to ask others, what is your purpose? And the majority of people I talked to said they didn't know. I got all kind of answers, but I also got a lot of, I don't know what my purpose is. And for me, I found my purpose through a very unique scenario. So in Clayton County, living in my parents' home, I was 21 years old, and I had left home but came back after trouble. And our home had a crawl space. So basically like storage, like under the foundation of the house. It was, where you may stick a lawnmower or something like that. It wasn't even tall enough to stand up under there. And I was just in a place in my life where I'm like, God, I'm spiraling out of control. I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I remember going under the house, and I took a candle, as crazy as it may seem, and my Bible, and that was it. And I'm crawling under the house, and I mean, the spider webs, everything everywhere. But I was there just seeking an answer. And I was down there for probably about 8 or 9 hours.
Wow.
And I remember I could hear the footsteps because my dad was a big man. I could hear his footsteps, and I could hear my parents and my sister talking, and they were like, "Where's John? Where did John go?" And I didn't even give them any kind of a clue as to where I was because I just needed that time alone. And eliminating distractions, I feel, is one of the ways that one can find their purpose. So when people ask me, how do you find your purpose? For me, one of the first ways, and one of the ways I came in contact with it, was separating myself from distraction. So I went to a place of focus, and I was under the house, and I just stayed down there until I felt like I was at least closer to understanding who I am and what I'm supposed to be. And during that time period, it didn't come exactly in that day, but that was the same time period I was retyping my poems. And it just came to me that I'm supposed to motivate people. And poetry was the first use of it, but then it took other forms just in the way I live my life. But that's how I found it, by separating myself from a lot of the distractions that were out there and really having a desire to know.
Thank you. That's a very powerful testimony. But and I want to speak more a little bit about that. But somebody has left a comment, Madhat83, thank you. She said, sorry, but there's a lot of interference. And I'm thinking maybe that I had this problem last week, and I think maybe your volume may be too high.
Let's turn it down. Let's see if that helps. Okay, I've turned it down to about 50%.
Okay.
Is that any better?
I think it's my end, to be completely honest. Let me turn my volume down. Sorry, guys, just bear with me.
I saw Hollywood, Jordan. What's up, man?
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. I do hope that you guys have got like a pen and paper to take notes, because this is going to be a conversation that I would like you to go away and reflect upon. So you came from a very warm background, a nuclear household, as we like to call it, mum, dad, very loving, safe, secure environment. But yet still there was a part of you that was searching for some form of identity, right? In who John is, okay? Even though what was being represented to you was, I suppose, positive, right? But you were still looking for some identity. And then you came to a place in which you was asking people, you know, what's your purpose in life? And it's funny how many people that you ask this question to, that they don't actually know the answer. And that's quite sad. It's quite sad that some of us don't know what our purpose in life is. And then this moment, did you say in Clayton? Did you say Clayton?
Clayton County. Yeah, it's an area in the south side of Atlanta.
Okay, so you decided to, it seemed like you reached your bottom point. It seemed like this collision between John now and knowing that there is something within you, knowing that there is more about you. So you came to this place of collision where you had to put everything to the side, and you said, you know, limiting distractions, this separateness. But I think what was also key for me in your testimony is the fact that you took a candle and you took the Bible. So you took a place, you went into a place of darkness, not just, you know, physically in the environment, but mentally and spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah.
Because you can understand the turmoil. And I think, you know, for if anyone has, you know, ever experienced this turmoil where you know deep inside you that there is more to you, there is more to this existence, there is more to surviving, there is more to this continual rat race, then please just drop a comment or put some hearts up. So you dig deep, and you was in there for 8 to 9 hours to have your breakthrough. Would you consider it a breakthrough?
I would consider it a breakthrough, absolutely. And I think that it's very important to point out what you did. You know, I was in a place in my life where prior to that, even though I had this ability to write poetry, I didn't know the value of it. I just wrote it for myself and never shared it really. But I was going in and out of jail. I went to a high school called Lovejoy High School. I went to Lovejoy High School, but then very shortly after graduating, I was at Lovejoy Jail. Lovejoy Correctional Facility. So I was in and out of jail. I was, you know, selling drugs. I was doing some robbing and, you know, some stick-ups. And I was really in a place where, you're right, I didn't know what my true identity was, but I began to get clues. And one of the ways that these clues kind of came to me was hearing other people. When people ask, how do I find my purpose? Well, separating myself from distraction was one of the ways, but in parallel, people were all also telling me these things about myself. I mean, even there were times where I'd be, out in the hood, in the streets, and, in a situation that you might not expect someone to say something like this. But one of my good homeboys from back in the day was, he was like, John, man, you're like an angel. And this is like after we had just finished robbing some folks. And he's like, man, being around you is like, man, it's like being around an angel, man. It's like there's something about you that is, I don't know what word he used back then, because this was years ago. But people began to say to me, there's something about you that is different. And so I think that also triggered the curiosity to say, what is this? Who am I? And what am I supposed to do? And that's one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's if there is this searching in wanting to know who you are, because, this question of identity, who am I? Because typically we reflect our environment, we reflect, the people around us, and we use that as our identity. But then there comes a point in time where the conviction within becomes a lot stronger. And I suppose when you start to feel that way, there will be clues. There will be people saying something, or you might find you might find that you're able to do things very easily. And if you're in that place of trying to figure out who you are, you'll be able to recognize them. There'll be some resonance. You'll be able to resonate with something that is attracted to your internal callings to want to know more. And once we move from this place of identity, once we recognize our identity, we then have to start to think, okay, where am I from, right? Now, you've mentioned God, so I take it you're a believer. I would say you're a kingdom builder. So would you say that your source of your identity is from God? Is that what you would say? Would you agree with that?
Unequivocally. I think that God is the source of who I am. And a lot of people, when they ask themselves, who am I? They may not consider God in that, in the answer for that question. Or the opposite. Some people want to know who they are, and they only think about God or what the religious answer to that might be. So some people try to shape themselves within that framework of, well, God is all that matters. And I think one of the most important things that I like to share with people is that it's not one or the other, though they are one and the same. And when I say that, what I'm saying is God is, God is everything, right? But we are also worthy of being taken into account when we're getting to know ourselves. And we have to look within. And for me, what I found is that that's where God was. God wasn't under that house. God was in my heart. So it took me to really search within myself to find the answers. And in searching within myself, God was undeniably a huge part of that. I do believe that God is the source, but I think that as we continue to proceed in finding out who we are, or even once we identify who we are, in becoming that, knowledge of self, understanding ourselves is extremely important. And in understanding ourselves, we will, by default, understand more about God, whether we know it or not. And if we seek to understand God, then by default, we should also understand more about ourselves, because you can't take the two apart. And a lot of people don't understand their own value because they don't understand that God is in them. God is in all of us. He is a part of us. I think existentially, we cannot exist without that little piece of God being in us as well. And once we really understand that, and you say, wow, God is in me, I have that source inside of me. I don't have to go anywhere else to find it. I don't have to go to ask someone else, and sometimes you may understand things through the help of others, but ultimately, the real answer, the real source, the real God is inside it.
Right, right. Okay. And I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with that. There's been moments in my life, and I'm soon to write. You got a ton of for that comment. So God is our source. God is within. And, there's this quote that says, know thyself. And when we know ourselves, and we know ourselves through going through that place of separateness, we go through that place of separateness when we ask the question, who am I and where am I from? Right? So you've gone through this separateness. I mean, for those who know me personally would know that I have gone on that journey. That I have lots of experiences in my life that has caused me to question the source. It's caused me to question, my identity. It's caused me to question, what is my source? Is the source is all powerful, almighty, or loving, or forgiving, or merciful, right? Then, why am I experiencing these situations? Why am I meeting so much tribulation and so much challenges? And, I would like to say that is in preparation for the purpose that I have been predestined for, that every single person on this live has been predestined for. We have to go through this journey. But not all of us choose to go through that darkness. Right? Not all of us choose to go through that darkness. And when we do go through that darkness, we identify, what is my purpose? And you've shared what your purpose is, which is to motivate others, to empower others, to get people to live a life of purpose by one, appreciating their blessings, right? Helping others. And mine is the same thing. I would say I am an encourager. I'm a motivator of people, of others. I'm a healer with my words. And the same thing as well, people would come to me and say, you know what, Simone, you talk so much sense. When I'm around you, I feel like alive. I get so much energy, like your energy just comes across, etc., etc. And it just made me realize, well, that is my gift. This is my gift. And then I heard a quote by Miles Monroe, and this quote is powerful, so you need to write it down. And he says, Miles Monroe says, is that everyone comes to earth. Every single person comes to earth, is created to come to earth, but you decide how much of you is manifested. You decide how much of your true self you're going to manifest. And then he went on to say that if you was to know the real you and look at the real you in the mirror, you would be afraid. And I thought about that, and I thought, hold on a minute, the only person that I would really be fearful of in the presence of is God. Mm-hmm. That he would know all my wrongs, all my everything. That's the only person who I feel in their presence I would feel afraid. But yet still, if I knew who I was to the core of my being, I would also be afraid. Because if God is the source and God is within us, then that same power, that same magnificence, that same almightiness, magnificence, that is within us. But how much of that do we choose to manifest? So I even want to move away from that now and say that some people may feel like the manifestation of this is through wealth. It's through monetary or materialistic gain. But actually, you know, we can shut that down and we can say there's so many people who have lots of money, but yet they don't know who they are. Yet they do not know their source. And their purpose hasn't yet been identified. Right?
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying, because, you know, as we kind of talked about earlier about how, you know, God and yourself, they're kind of one and the same. You can't separate them. But some people try to throw wealth in that same pool. And wealth is, you know, and when we talk about wealth, you know, monetary wealth is something that is separate from who you are at your core. It's something that can be added on, but it's not, it's not who you are. Anybody who has accumulated wealth, they, if they identify with wealth, or if they identify themselves as wealth, then a lot of times that will manifest itself as insecurity, because really at your core, or just lack of understanding themselves. So, and you mentioned that dark place where it's not manifesting and you go through challenges and things. There are a couple of my favorite sayings, and I'm a big fan of Miles Monroe as well, but there are a couple of sayings that I've come across that I would also like to share. One of them is very simple, yet it's profound to me. And it's that some people see challenges in every opportunity, and some see opportunity in every challenge. And I think that that's depending on the way you look at it. One of those things is think optimistically, right? So when we see a challenge in every opportunity, sometimes the opportunity may not even be, we don't know if it's opportunity. We just know that there's a challenge in front of us. And when that is our way of seeing it, then it can be discouraging. It can be, it can be depressing even. But when you look at a challenge and you say, this is an opportunity, then it changes the game completely. It opens up the possibilities. I like to compare myself, or I like to make the analogy of a warrior and a soldier, right? So if you think about a soldier, typically a soldier, marches in line, does very well with following orders. And usually when there's a war, the soldier may not even want to go, but because that's what they signed up for and they're called by their country, then they go and they serve and they fight. Now, a warrior, on the other hand, when the war comes, they're anxious to get in there. Also, a warrior may not even have to be marching in that line, so to speak, right? So if you think about some of the warriors, they may be fighting alone. Maybe the whole army is at the front and the warrior is like behind enemy lines and he's doing damage in the background. So the warrior mindset is one that sees the war, sees the challenge, and goes towards it, because that's an opportunity to prove their own loyalty. I think when it comes to my relationship with God, I always am wanting to show God how much I wish I could return, the love and the favor that he's shown to me. And many times those opportunities come through facing challenges or doing things that are uncomfortable and persevering through that darkness, because once I come into the light, then I've shown God that, wow, through you, I had what it took to get through, but also now I can be a blessing and a benefit and an example to others. The other very important quote, this started off as a Hindu proverb. Ernest Hemingway kind of like made it more famous, but it is, there is nothing noble in being superior to some other man. True nobility is in being superior to your previous self.
Oh,
and
my
that is
gosh.
what I live by. That is what I live by. I'm constantly
repeat that one right now. Repeat it.
The saying is, there is nothing noble in being superior to some other man. True nobility is in being superior to your previous self.
Oh, wow. Amen. Yes, 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 yes. 100%. It's you versus you all the time. Me versus me all the time. Am I better than how I was yesterday? Have I improved?
There's a constant pursuit. If you get to a point where you don't know, where to go, what to do, you feel like you have no direction, you can always default back to just being better who you were yesterday. If you don't know what to do, be better. If you are, you can be at a point where you've reached a plateau in your life, because when you're searching for your purpose and you're, an adolescent, the stakes are high, but that urgency isn't there. But when you are an adult and you've got responsibilities and you've got a life that you built or a life that you're hoping to build, then purpose becomes something that is ongoing, and you can't rest on it, because when you rest on it, you lose time. And that feeling is a feeling you don't feel until you have purpose, or you find purpose. Because when you don't find purpose, then you can be ultimately drifting. And drifting is a very lackadaisical place to be in. It can be very good. You can be drifting, you know, on the shores of Bora Bora, but you can also be drifting in a place where you are homeless, jobless. You are in a place where everything that you wanted, you don't have. And drifting is dangerous. But when you have purpose, then you wake up every day with something to do, and that never goes away. And one of the purpose that you, if you can't find your own, be better than who you were. If you could do 50 push-ups yesterday, then do 100 push-ups today. And if you can't do 100 push-ups a day, do as many as you can and work to be better, because that's a very valuable way to spend your time in trying to be better.
Absolutely. And, you know, even to add to that and to also further qualify that, when I'm thinking about my life and the course that it's taken and where I am now, you know, confident in who I am and knowing what my purpose is, I've come to the realization that some of those tests have been so simple. And it has been in the sense of me bettering myself the day before. It's like, the conviction is like this, that I could go shopping and I might pick up something, but actually I don't need that item anymore. So the old me would want to put that item anywhere, right? But the consistency in who I'm trying to be means that I would put that item back where it goes, because that is creating a sense of discipline within myself and understanding the impact that it has on the person who has to come and take this item and place it back. Because your thinking before would be, well, that's their job, they're supposed to do that. So in order for us to, you know, move towards what our purpose is, and while we're still trying to figure that out, what we would find is, you know, you say you want to lose weight, for example. Your purpose or your goal would be to lose weight or to motivate people to lose weight, but yet still you haven't mastered the cookie jar. You haven't mastered going for a run. You haven't mastered, you know, eating properly. And the minute that we decide to master those very small, might seem very menial, but actually the impact that they have on our discipline, our determination, our perseverance, once we are moving in line with our purpose, is powerful. Because people think that we can jump from just, right, I'm living my life on purpose, but yet still the qualities and the skills that you have to accrue along the way have been presented to us through all these menial tasks. You know,
it's a process.
Absolutely.
Would it be appropriate for me to share a poem with you and your audience?
Not at all. Our audience. No, not at all. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So what we were talking about, I felt this would be relevant and fitting, especially in relation to what you just said. And it says, setbacks have come my way on this highway, but it's better than the low way. It's better than looking at my challenges and saying, no way. It's better than seeing opportunity and saying, I'll never make it through that doorway. I just can't settle for the sure way. There's no easy way on this hard road, but the hard road leads to high places, though sometimes it might lead through wet tears onto dry faces. But I guess that's why hope leads to faith after experience leads to patience. And I must live as an example. Therefore, I cannot allow my dreams to be trampled. So when I face obstacles beyond my strength, God helps me overcome what I can't handle. He's my guiding light when these harsh winds blow out my candle. He's the foundation on which I stand while so many others choose to sit. But maybe they give up because they don't know that you don't lose until you quit. Just keep pushing and keep going when it's raining and it's snowing, when the earth is quaking and the ground is shaking, when your world is flooding and your heart is breaking. Joy will come in the morning no matter how long the sun is taking. Victory is sweet, but defeat produces a bitter blend, and the race is not given to the swift, but he who endures until the end. For me, the danger of dying is more acceptable than the shame of giving in. I just hope you're receiving the message I'm trying to send, because when I focus on my purpose, my passion takes over the fight. And yes, it's a heavy burden, but it's filled with so much light. It's filled with so much value. It's filled with so much worth. And we all have a purpose of our own that we've been carrying since birth. And that's the foundation on which I stand, while so many others choose to sit. But maybe they give up because they don't know that you don't lose until you quit. It's not over until it's over. Go on and revise that business plan. Stand up for what you believe. Be a woman, be a man. Keep applying for that job. Keep taking the test until you pass. Keep studying, keep grinding, keep refusing to settle for last. Keep working towards that future. Keep building on those dreams. Keep your focus and keep your peace amidst the chaos, cries and screams, because no excuse will be accepted and failure is not an option. Don't listen to the naysayers, because they want to see you stopping. They want to see you stooping to their low levels of expectation. But you are an achiever, a superseder of situation. And these words are motivation. Then I am your relation, not by blood, but by struggle, like faith and like foundation on which we choose to stand, while so many others choose to sit, because we know and we understand that you don't lose until you quit.
That's right.
But that, I feel, is very relevant to what you were just saying, because you do have to keep pushing, because it is a process. There's going to be a lot of setbacks. There's always going to be struggle or challenge for anything. And the best thing to have is knowledge of yourself, because that's where you find fulfillment.
Absolutely. That was powerful. Thank you. It was like this build up. This, you know, it built up, and it was like, yes, that's right. I am who I am. I'm ready for this. I'm not giving up. I've got something to fulfill. I believe in my purpose. I believe in myself. I know I have what it takes. I know I have what it takes. You guys will know, if you know that you have what it takes to live a life of purpose, if you know that you have what it takes to push your business forward, to write your next book, to lose weight, whatever it is that you feel that you have the belief to do, I beg you, please just blow it up with some hearts, or put some comments in the box. I would really, really appreciate it, because what I've come to understand is that I talk about resonance. I talk about resonance so much of late, because I feel that I need to be around the resonation of motivation, the resonation of self-belief, the resonation of empowerment. I need to be hearing that. I need to be feeling that, because that's like my food right now. That's my food right now. And it's also a place of where I'm starving myself. I'm starving myself, because I'm like, you know what? I firmly believe in who I am. I know who I am. I know exactly what I've been called to do. But like you said, you reach this plateau. You reach this plateau, and then you have to kind of assess and reanalyze. And that obviously comes from discernment and whatever. But while you're there in this plateau where things may seem a bit stagnant, you may seem that you may be even procrastinating, or you feel a bit lazy, or there's a lack of commitment to your goals. This is where you need resonance. And hearing your poetry is like that fire. It's the spark. It's the catalyst to the next movement, right?
Yeah, and I think I would even add that when you are working towards something but you don't feel it, there is some value in, first of all, knowing that you do have what it takes, right? There's nobody who's even joined right now. Every single person who is hearing this and seeing this, you have what it takes. Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, if it is really who you are. Now, if you're trying to accomplish something that just is what you think the world wants from you, or if you think that, or if you're trying to accomplish something that's not really a part of you, then I don't know, it may not work out right. But when you tap into who you are and you're working towards it, you have what it takes. It's custom made. It's tailor made for you. And what I did was, I looked at some of the other people who were accomplishing things, right? I said, what are they doing? And I started seeing all this cliche stuff. Like if you've seen on Instagram, the millionaires wake up early in the morning and they write journals and all that stuff. So I saw some of that stuff. And one of the things that I used to do, and I still do, is I used to be, when I was, working in IT, before I really got on the entrepreneurial path, I was making, a comfortable living fairly easily, right? I was like, I just wake up, my conference calls may start at 9. I'm working from home. I would have my laptop in the bed, and that was, kind of my routine. But then I realized that that I needed to take time to myself in the morning before I started really getting wrapped up into the things I had to do for work. But I didn't get up until like 5 minutes before the call, right? So I had all these hours before me in the morning where I wasn't being productive or wasn't really investing in myself. And so what I did was I always felt like I was a lazy guy. That was one of my own flaws where I said, man, I feel like I just don't have the work ethic. It's just coming so easy and I'm not really pushing myself. What I did was I said, I'm going to get up at least 30 minutes ahead of time, 8:30. And I'm going to take the first 30 minutes of my day and I'm going to start to like pray, meditate. So I got up at 8:30. I'm like, it was pretty good. And then I pushed it to 8 once I got 8:30 down pretty well. Pushed it to 8. Now I had a whole hour to meditate, read, pray. And then as time kept going, I pushed it to 7:30. Now I'm at 6 o'clock. And this started, and just to show you the process, this started for me probably 4 or 5 years ago, that it took me from waking up at 8:45, right in time to do whatever the work was. On the weekends, I would sleep, till later, to now I get up at 6 every day. Doesn't matter if it's the weekend, daytime, meeting coming up, because I found that when I use that time in the morning, before my phone starts ringing, before the emails start coming in, I will motivate myself. I will build on myself. I will learn more about myself. I will really seek that from the inside, and that has paid dividends. So sometimes you have to look within yourself, challenge your own weaknesses and flaws. That was my flaw. But I said, I'm not going to accept it.
Absolutely. I just, listening to you, there's something that I teach called true pride, false pride. So false pride is this mindset. And the mindset of false pride is I'm gonna get up early and I'm gonna do some reading, listen to something motivational. That could be what you decide to do. But that doesn't happen, right? Now, what we do when we live in false pride is we make excuses as to why that doesn't happen. Okay, and this could be about any other situation, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? Yep. So there are a lot of people who are living in false pride, and that was myself for a long time. I was living in this false pride, okay? And I want you guys to consider that have you ever thought about doing something? You've probably made preparations to put it in place. It doesn't happen. But instead of acting upon what hasn't happened, we leave it and we make excuses. And we continue to make excuses, right? And then you have something called true pride. Now, true pride is, and when we think about pride, it's this understanding of self, or what we wouldn't want things about ourselves to be known, right? Okay. Now, when we're in true pride, we know who we are. This, again, it goes back to the knowing of self. When you're in true pride, you make a decision to do something. It doesn't get executed at the time that you said it was supposed to be executed, but it gets executed. There is no excuse. So the more that we can consistently live in true pride, the more that we will start to see the successes, however big or small that they are. And you saying that you wake up, I mean, I'm looking at my amazing day. I read a book called The 5 a.m. Club. We are the most productive in the morning. We have a lot more clarity about what we want to do, how it's going to get done in the morning. But the prerequisites to this is the time that we spend either in prayer or meditation or doing exercise. Because what happens when we awake, there's a chemical in our brain that immediately puts us in a state of fear in relation to what needs to be done today, okay, for that day. When we separate ourselves and we take time out for ourselves, out for the Creator, that chemical of fear dissipates, because we now have a clear vision on what it is that we want to achieve. This is true pride. It's also reflective of how much you love yourself. How much that you have accepted and you have liked all the other stuff, all the stuff that you haven't liked about yourself, that you're willing to move from false pride into true pride. Now, the thing is, we fluctuate between the two. We fluctuate between the two. But there comes a point in time where you can only live in true pride.
I'm sorry, but I think that the true pride for the translation for me is principles. So I have principles that I live by, that I've developed over time. And these principles are what keep me productive and grounded, and they can apply to any situation. I saw a person put a comment before, where could they find the poem? And without going into too much detail, I would just say, look at my page. It's John F. Dilworth. If you go on there, you'll find like links and stuff to get to it. But also, you'll find further on down my principles. I shared them with people because the principles, they are what help me to stay in a place where I'm productive and I'm living by the values that I know have helped me to succeed. Right. And so I'll give you an example. One of my principles is never expect others to do things the way I do them. And it's really helped me in relationships. So that principle applies with all relationships for me, where it's like, I may do something one way, another person may do it a different way, but if I go into an expectation of them doing it my way, then, you know, there's going to be conflict in the relationship. So really, principles help me to stay true to my own pride and really loving myself, because all of that works hand in hand. I really appreciate you for sharing it in that way, because I'm going to take that with me. The false pride versus the true pride, and it really is a blessing to hear that.
Thank you. I'm glad it resonated with you, and I haven't been able to see the comments, so I apologize if there has been any questions left. I apologize, it just got stuck and I didn't realize there has a whole heap of questions. I am aware of the time, which gives us only 5 minutes left. I would love to continue this conversation with you. What would be your top tip to living a life of purpose?
I would say the top tip is to constantly work to understand yourself. And that saying that I shared earlier, which I think if you don't remember anything else from what we talked about today or what I've said, I would say, remember that there's nothing noble in being superior to somebody else, chasing the Joneses, or being what people expect you to be. There's no true pride in that. Being what, you know, somebody else is, or doing what somebody else does, or trying to outdo someone else, that's a road to let down, disappointment, and even destruction. But when you are trying to be better than your previous self, then you're going to always be moving in the right direction, and that direction will be what's right for you. It may not be right for anybody else, but it's going to be right for you, and it will provide positive results in your life.
Absolutely. Thank you. And, you know, I just even want to add to that as well. And it's something that I'm very honest about where I am. And for every single person who is on this Instagram live at the moment, This message is for you. There's a reason why you're here, why you decided to come and join this mindset motivation. This message is for you. Because what you decide to do after we leave, after this ended, which will be soon, will determine the next course, the next phase of your life. And you may be like, what? This is just an Instagram live. No, it's not. This is an opportunity for you to take a step back and to reflect and to say, you know what, if I'm living in false pride, I'm moving into true pride. I'm going to separate myself from the distractions, and I'm going to feed myself something different. I'm going to fill my cup up with something different so that I can overflow. And if you're in a place of where you're discovering what your purpose is, what are you good at? What is your gift? My gift is to talk, to motivate, to speak. So is John's. You already know what your gift is, but when you move away from your gift, you won't find your purpose. And your gift is already within you, is something that you do already. It's something that you may not have done, but when you did do it, it came so easy to you. And I would really, really, really want you, if anything to take away, is that to better yourself each day. Every time that you wake up, think to yourself, what can I do to get better today, to live my life on purpose, of purpose? Thank you, John, so much.
Thank you, Simone.
I would appreciate if you could just put the link in on your Instagram page in regards to where they can get the book, Motivation for the Masses. Yeah. And yeah. I will also put that quote in there by Ernest Hemingway, you said, about nobility. Absolutely.
It's a Hindu proverb, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.